Welcome back, everybody, to Constructive Uncoupling, the podcast devoted to amicable divorces. I'm Judy Weigel, your host, and your amicable divorce expert. Why? Because that's all I do, amicable divorces. Today, we have a very special guest. We have a family law attorney. Her name is Robyn Santucci of Santucci Family Law in Los Angeles, California, where my practice is as well. And I love Robyn. I love Robyn for these reasons. She is honest, she is thorough, she is caring. And when I refer anybody to Robyn, I know they're going to be well taken care of. So I want to share with all of you various aspects of working with an attorney. It doesn't mean you're not amicable. Attorneys hold a place in any type of divorce, whether you want to do it yourself or you need full representation. So Robyn's going to help clarify a lot of information for us, and if we don't get to everything today, we bring her back again. So Robyn, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Judy. I'm happy to be here.
Perfect. First question. Why is it important to hire a family law attorney before you begin divorce negotiations or before you file? Give us your thoughts on that.
Well, I would say I'm not even sure you need to hire a divorce attorney before you begin. I mean, the purpose of the attorney is to do that work for you. If you are wondering whether you can handle your own divorce, use the services of Judy, for example, speak with your spouse and sort everything out on your own and be self-represented, I still think it's a good idea to consult with a lawyer. Consult with more than one lawyer. And I would say try to get referrals from people that you trust when you're trying to locate a lawyer. Don't just go to the internet. Internet is great, but not every lawyer has a great website to give you a good introduction to them. And it's going to be promotional to some extent. So you want to get referrals from people. That's the majority of where my business comes from, even though I do have a website that has a lot of information about me. So I think you want somebody that's had a good experience with their divorce lawyer, or maybe their cousin or, coworker or whatever had a good experience with their lawyer. Divorce is tough. It's not like I stay in close contact with my former clients, but, I help them through a very difficult time. And I think they have a lot of respect for me and appreciation for me to do that, even though it's a slow and painful slog sometimes. I think my purpose is to kind of get them through it. But I do have a lot of people that want to come in and meet with me to get sort of the lay of the land initially, because to some extent, they may have no idea of how property is divided in California or how support works. If they have kids, that's a whole other big topic for discussion. And some of these are not issues for every single person. So, of course, when I have an initial consultation with somebody, I try to tailor it. First of all, listen to what, their story is. That's key for me. The facts of their story are key, as well as how they tell me their story, because I get an idea about their perspective on the world and how kind of emotional they may be, how reasonable, rational they may be or not be. And it helps me feel them out to say, can I work with this person? Is this person going to be somebody I can educate and explain and advocate for and be their best ally? Or is this somebody that's going to really fight me on every single thing? And then I know it's not probably a good fit, and but I think for the consumer, I would say definitely meet with several attorneys. When you're looking for a lawyer, you have to have kind of a warm fuzzy, but you also have to have, do I have respect for this person? Does this person sound authoritative, like he or she knows what she's talking about? Can they answer a question simple and straightforward, but also be able to reach into an academic, explanation of California law? You want somebody that has range, because not some clients really want that. They really want to dig into the whys of the family code, right? But some don't. They just want an answer to their questions. But I think, when as a consumer you go in to meet with these lawyers, you want somebody that is a good communicator that you understand. Because if you're asking them lots of questions and they're giving you an answer, but you are just not matching in how you're understanding them, then it's not a good communication fit for you. So I think those are kind of some things I would tell people who are shopping around for lawyers. You also want to maybe see what kind of practice the lawyer has to see if you'd be a good fit in their practice. For example, how many cases do they have at once? Are they going to have time really to take on a new case? Do they have expertise in a particular area that your set of facts might require? It's not, I guess it's not, you don't have to rule somebody out completely if they never had a case identical to yours, but I think it's helpful if they've, done 5 move-away cases in custody in the last 2 years, and that's what your case involves, because then they truly can speak from experience.
This is exceptional. Everything you've said is exceptional, and it actually takes in a few questions I was going to ask you. But I love several things about what you said, but especially the very last thing, and that is make sure they have experience in maybe a very specific need you have. Recently, I did a request for order filing for a woman who had a special needs child, unmarried, so it was parentage, case ongoing for a while, but she fortunately found an attorney who had a lot of experience in special needs children. Now, that's not something every attorney would have, is it?
Definitely not. No, that's great. I mean, that's a gold mine. To have some specialized experience in a particular niche of family law, which is already a niche practice as it is great. I mean, if you can find that, I would. And if somebody comes to meet with me, and this happened this week recently, and they have a case in August, it's for an annulment. I haven't done an annulment. If I've done one, it's probably 15 years ago. They met with someone else who's done, several, and they've prevailed on them more recently. I said, go with that attorney. That if it were me, I would go with that attorney, the other attorney that you met with, because they've done these cases. They can, educate you on exactly what happens, the nuts and bolts, not just what I could go and research in a book. So,
and I want to add something that just happened yesterday with Robyn. I actually referred her for a prenuptial agreement, and she referred somebody else because she doesn't do them. They're a very specialized area of law. So I can confirm what she's saying. She only handles what she knows she can be successful at or work her way through. And that's why I love you so much. That's why I wanted people to get to know you through this podcast.
Thank you, Judy.
Now, family law is specialized. How many people do I get who've gone to see a general practitioner who may have handled very little family law, but they put family law on their website? Can you please speak to this a second?
Oh, wow. I would say I didn't know that happened that often. I've only ever practiced family law. It's only kind of law I've wanted to do. I have a background in psychology, and it just kind of is a natural marriage of my skill set and interest set. But I think if you're in a town like Los Angeles or an outlying area of Los Angeles, and you can find a lawyer, just like a doctor, that is a specialist in exactly the field that you're looking for, and you've got that option, I don't know why you would go general. Now, if you live in a small town in Idaho or Mississippi or somewhere where you've got one lawyer for the whole town, one stoplight town, sure, they can do your family law and they can do your real property claims and everything else. But in Los Angeles, in particular, family law, you have such a talented group of lawyers. I mean, between San Francisco, Los Angeles, maybe New York, I would say you're going to have your cream of the crop family lawyers. I don't know why you wouldn't go for somebody that really has devoted their whole practice to this specialized area.
It's a level of comfort. So here's what they tell me. Well, he handled something with real estate. He handled another type of claim for me. I have a comfort level with him or her. And so I'm going to do that. And what happens is the filing isn't correct.
Right.
And I'll have to correct some things if they come to me. So it's not beneficial. It really is beneficial to find a family law attorney.
I would agree with that.
Okay. You said something very interesting just now, and now the pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together a little bit more for you. And it was going to piggyback on, harken to another question I was going to ask. So the people involved in divorces, the professionals involved in divorces will be attorneys, mediators, and therapists, other than forensic accountants and other sorts. But your basic people are going to be attorneys, therapists quite often because it's a very emotional experience and you need that, and mediators because this has been a new way of getting divorced rather than the trial. I was going to ask you to explain to people what they should use their attorneys for and what they should not use their attorneys for. But the fact that you said you have a psychology background said everything to me when you said initially just now, I like to listen to them and I like to assess where they're coming from so I can assess if I can be helpful to them. Could you respond to this a little bit?
So, even though I have a psychology background, I certainly don't serve the role as a therapist for my clients. That I would not have the skill set to do that. It's an interest and a passion of mine. And I think because I have that training and that sort of frames the way I saw the world through college and grad school and all the internships I did before I went to law school, I still wear that hat. And I think that because of that, I have a lot of clients that come to me that have either custody cases, because certainly you need a kind of a psychological approach to understanding the interest between two parents who cannot agree about custody. You need somebody that maybe understands child development, so you can opine on what may be in the best interest of a 2-year-old versus a 12-year-old, right? So someone who has a feel for that, I think, is helpful, which is why I think people come to me because I have training on that. And it's sort of more of a soft skill, because I have a bevy of psychologists that I refer to for all kinds of different needs that my clients have. Do they always take my advice? No. Do they always get a therapist, or do they utilize their own therapist going through a divorce? They don't always, like I would like them to. But a lot of what I do, or what we do, we kind of get hung up on, I would say, is cutting through the emotional aspect of...
We meaning lawyers.
We meaning lawyers, exactly. Cutting through the emotional aspect of practicing family law. You wouldn't think that there would be a lot of discussion of it, and it's not. It's more, it comes out in the form of complaining, venting, asking why, criticizing the laws of California, but, and working through the how does this framework of the legal system apply to your case. This is more, I would say, on custody, or if you have kind of it's irreconcilable differences, but, people do stray outside of their marriage, and the emotion kind of comes into the divorce of the person that's been cheated on. So that takes some time to work through. I mean, there's no opportunity to ever just have a completely, generic, unemotional divorce. I've never seen one, even a simple one. There's going to be emotions there because you were married to this person. It's your family that is no longer going to be your family. And that's going to trigger a lot of issues, maybe childhood issues. We don't know. So I always think if you have a good therapist, let me just say, I know when my client has a good therapist, because I can then very much concentrate my work with the client on just the legal piece of their case. And they come to me having already distilled down what we really can impact in the legal arena of their case versus kind of more the emotional steps of putting this whole experience to bed. When I have to do that or need to do that, I mean, sure, I like to do that. I don't mind doing that, but it's very expensive. It's very expensive.
That's what I was going to bring up next. In terms of, let's delineate what an attorney can do and what an attorney can't do, and how does that translate into your overall bill? Because people are shocked. What do you mean you charged me for that phone call? We only talked about how upset I was about what he or she did the other day. Let's talk about how you manage that money and what you're being charged for.
Yes, I think, you have to understand, lawyers, we are trying to keep our eye on the bill the whole time. And I hear a lot of, criticisms of family law attorneys, divorce attorneys, kind of churning the case to get the bill higher and higher. That has not been my experience at any firm I've ever worked at. I think it takes a lot of time to manage those emotions, okay? So the problem that I have sometimes with clients in trying to help them and keep their bill down is that they don't let me just focus on the legal piece of it. And I think once a few bills come out and they see that, gosh, I can't believe we talked for 2 hours, throughout the course of a day, 45 minutes here, it all adds up, 18 minutes here, it all adds up. And it was all just about their ability to make a decision, say, on a settlement offer. That's really, we didn't talk about their emotional state. We just kind of went maybe around in a few circles, kind of determining what is the best aspect for them, what will happen if they do this, and kind of trying to play things out for them. That's strategy. I love doing that kind of thing, but it does take time. Some people are happy to spend that time. They want that. That's why they have a lawyer, because they want someone strategic. They want to be able to talk things out. But it all does add up. And, there are other ways I can also...
When would they go over the line and talk to an attorney about something an attorney just can't do for them?
Good question. Cannot do for them. I think it's more the...
emotional aspects.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, I think attorney cannot answer to a certain extent the what ifs. I'm just thinking about some questions that I was asked this week by a potential client. What if a whole long series of incomplete hypothetical, I'm spending a lot of times on me just speculating. And it's really outside of what the legal, framework is. It's more of me having, to be able to answer the question, I would have to know the psychological makeup of all of the characters involved. And there's just no way I do, know? So...
Person's married to somebody with a personality disorder.
Oh, boy.
So when I first got in this, I'm going to give an example. So when I first got in the business, it was bipolar. Everybody was bipolar. It's all we talked about was bipolar. Now, the last couple of years, everybody's a narcissist. So that's the personality disorder du jour, right?
Yes.
And so I will even get calls, and I work on a flat fee when I'm talking about filing. So I don't look at I look at the clock only with the intention that they may end up leaving me. And my form of charging is I will document the time you spent with me and back it out of my flat fee, depending on, where we are in the filing. But something maybe an attorney's time may not be better spent on is venting about he or she came late to pick up the kids.
Exactly.
And how to deal with that. That's more a co-parenting therapist would talk about that, right?
Sure. If you have the benefit of seeing a co-parenting therapist with your spouse, and you already have that in place, for sure that's something you're going to want to use that therapist for. The problem is that if you've got a narcissist on the other side, he or she is never going to sit down with you in a co-parenting therapy session. You'll never even get them there. And if you do, they will be just commandeering the entire session, complaining, and trying to get the therapist on their side, essentially. So, sure, if you have somebody that's able to meet with a mediator, able to meet with a co-parenting therapist or mediator to resolve that, I think that's great. I mean, I love having, if I can have, for example, custody. If it's people that can get along more or less, but they need help from a professional to sort out holidays and vacations and summer camps and some legal custody orders, nobody better to do that than a co-parenting mediator, to me. Because once that, especially a good one, they're going to draft that whole thing based on the input of both parties. Once, the meeting, they go through and meet with them. And then I can just take that piece, custody, done. Now I can focus on support and property. And I already have this wonderful custody agreement all written up, beautiful, and I know it's what both people want. So that streamlines a lot of it. But again, I think if you've got somebody with a personality disorder, it's going to be tough, just like the marriage was tough. Your best bet is to try to get through it as quickly as you can so you can go on your merry way.
Everything is a compromise in divorce. We have the law, and then we have the compromises that we have to make based on our unique relationship, how it transpired, where it's going to, and the people involved, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I tell everybody. This is all a compromise. And the episode of all the podcasts I've uploaded so far, the one that gets the most hits, Co-Parenting with a Narcissist.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and I'm following because I want to know how to bring other topics up that would interest people, and that's still the number one. I'm looking at one I posted a week ago, Co-Parenting with a Drug Addict.
Oh, boy.
That's huge when you have children.
Yes.
If you don't, things are minimal.
Right.
But with children, it's almost mission impossible until they're clean.
Oh, totally.
I mean, there is no co-parenting if they're not clean.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we handled that. So, segueing into how do you know when you've handled the right attorney versus the wrong attorney? Things like, and please address this, how long should it take your attorney to get back to you? You said you want to listen to your client's needs. What if your client really wants it to be amicable, but their comfort level is truly to have an attorney handle it, not somebody like me, a legal document assistant, perfectly fine. What do you look for in that type of attorney where it's amicable, but you just want that legal comfort level?
Okay, so a couple different questions there. Let me address the first one on how do you know if you've picked the right lawyer, how long should it take, and how long should it take for them to get back to you, for example. I mean, that's a complaint a lot of people have is my lawyer never calls me back. I never hear from my lawyer. And, the state bar hears that a lot too when they get complaints. That's like one of the number one things. So I would say to address just that practical question first. Certainly, I think you should expect, generally speaking, a return phone call or email within 24 hours. I think that is kind of a rule of thumb. Now, let's depart from that. Say if your lawyer is on vacation out of the country, time zones, probably not even maybe checking email. They would have given you notice. You're not going to be able to hear from them, quickly, I would say. But you would know that in advance. Maybe they're in their hospital, maybe they're whatever. It's something extraordinary. I think if you don't hear back from them within some reasonable period of time, however, that's a general rule because I think for me, when I'm thinking about returning emails or phone calls, those are very different things. If I have 2 minutes to respond to an email, I can squeeze that in amongst many other things. I will do that so much faster than a phone call to be returned for two reasons. One, when I'm typing out an email, I know how much time I have and how long that will take me. I will make that happen and fit it in. For a phone call, depending on how complicated the question is, I need to, in my own schedule, figure out a time where I've got to return my client's phone call. This is kind of a 30-minute question or an hour. It's going to take us an hour to address that. Where can I fit this hour in? I'm not going to call them until I have that time available. Sometimes I do that, and that might take longer to fit that time in. I call them, and then we're in phone tag. So every time we're in phone tag, and we don't say set a time to call, which I always encourage clients to do, set a time to call and a phone call appointment. You will get it done then. You will not get lost in phone tag because every time you get lost in phone tag, then I have to go back and find that space again, to be able to return a call. So phone calls in this day and age are I think, still necessary. They play a vital role because there's no other, way to do a proper Q&A of your lawyer, but maybe schedule the time and get it scheduled. You should at least be able to schedule a phone call, I would say, within 24 hours. Okay, so there's that. The second question you had was about what? Oh, when you need to actually have a lawyer come on board and handle a case for you, even if your case is simple.
How do you know you've handled the right attorney? If it's pretty simple, pretty amicable, you just need the comfort level of having one of the highest legal profession handle your divorce.
Right. So it really comes down to what issues you have in your case and how amicable it's going to be. And I think you know that if you've done some groundwork with your spouse, talking through what the issues are, how you can maybe divide things up, or you've been in mediation. I guess in that capacity, I would say I do a lot of consulting with people that are in mediation. for that reason, because they want to know, A, are they missing anything? B, the mediator cannot give them any legal advice. Is this a pretty good deal? Kind of run it by me, that kind of thing. I do a lot of cases like that. I think it's peace of mind. I put myself in their shoes and I think I would want a lawyer. And this is what I do for a living. And I know how complicated it is or is not, but if it were me going through a divorce, I would want a lawyer because I want an advocate to have. I don't have to unleash them to go crazy on my behalf, but even though they could, and I want somebody that's capable of doing that. But I want somebody who can give me options, explain my legal rights to me and give me options so that I can say, yes, I can compromise on that. No, I don't need to compromise on that. Or here's some kind of middle ground that we can get to, some customized kind of an offer. I would say for sure consult as needed. It doesn't have to be any set amount of time. A lot of family law attorneys, including myself, will either take a case to just kind of be on retainer for somebody going through mediation, and they'll call or they'll email as issues come up as they need me. I don't think everybody needs full representation.
Okay, so let me give you an example, because I do inherit people who have been with attorneys and they have to let them go either because they absolutely ran out of money, it just took too long, or their attorney wanted to fight and they didn't. And so what I've heard, Robyn, from people is they'll go to an attorney's office and the first thing out of the attorney's mouth is, let's get him. And that's not what they want to hear sometimes. They want to hear, let's explore what the law is. Let's look at how the law applies to you. They want somebody even that they feel will do the right job, but they're not interested in crushing their spouse. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes there are attorneys who are so into the fight mode because they love litigation, and they don't understand that the world has changed a little bit.
Right.
And people don't just want to fight anymore. They want fair, and as we know, fair is a fighting word sometimes, but and it's subjective, but they don't really want to fight. They want to be listened to, and they want a reasonable approach back.
Right, for sure. And I think to some extent, again, it's so case specific on the kind of person you're divorcing, because you might be the most reasonable person in the world. And I feel like I'm lucky that I somehow have a lot of those people. I get like the really reasonable client who I love because I think you attract the kind of client you are, the kind of lawyer you are. But on the other side is somebody that is very contentious and extreme and maybe has some psychopathology or, some deep-seated whatever it is, entrenched stuff that even though my client doesn't want to fight, they have to almost fight to get to reasonable. So it's kind of, there's no really cookie cutter answer to that. I think that every case is really individual and dynamic. Something that a proposal that you come in with that you think is fair, you might, go through some light discovery or light litigation and to determine, okay, well, none of this is worth it. I just will, I thought at the beginning I was going to get X, but now I'm getting X minus Y. But at the end of the day, I'm ready to be done. I'm just ready to be done. And I think if you want to litigate your case, there are many, many lawyers out there, and that's what they'll push you to do. Just understand that you have to think about what you're fighting over and what the benefit is to you. Because once you start accruing hours of time to do the fighting, you might be worse off financially, far worse off. So if it's just an emotional kind of a journey you must go on, just understand there's a price for that. If you want to litigate your case, And sometimes you will have no choice. There are people that just simply have no choice, depending on their spouse.
Do you think the return phone call issue has to do with case overload? Do you think attorneys take too many cases on? So that and make it hard for them to service each client in a timely way?
Hard for me to say because my practice is not a volume practice specifically. I only have a finite amount of time in a day. And so I don't take on more than I think I can manage because I know I will be very unhappy and the clients will not be well served. But I think that it's just the things that a lawyer kind of has to evaluate with every phone call and every email. One thing I said earlier, I may be correct. Getting a quick response to an email depends on what the email is. Sometimes I get emails from clients that are pages long that have 25 questions that require 25 detailed written responses. Okay, that's not going to be a 2-minute thing I can just polish off at a stoplight like we were talking about earlier. I mean, you need to sit and you need to really focus. Now, I try to get back to people super quick if it's something, quick I can answer that I think is time sensitive, that I think is going to upset and burden them until they know the answer and they're waiting on me. That's the kind of thing, of course, is more compelling that I can get back to them right away on. If they have a question that I think can wait, a lot of things with times as family lawyers, we're in triage, just like everybody lives their life. We have to evaluate what is the most critically time sensitive, what is the most important. Those are, if it's critically time sensitive and important, those get answered first. If it's kind of neither, those are probably going to get answered last. And that can vary by day or by week, but in general, we know in this field, because we took these clients on, that all of their problems are important and time sensitive in their own mind, and they can be patient, but they need a dialogue going with their lawyer or the staff of the lawyer's office or someone that's going to get back to them. They need, just like if you had a medical issue that was really weighing on you, a call from a nurse to say your results are coming, they're not in yet, we'll get back to you ASAP, or let you know by X when they'll be, just to keep you in the loop on the timing just makes you feel so much better. And I think same thing in family law. Like, you just need to know when are you going to be able to get a response back.
I actually know of somebody that because her attorney didn't get back to her on a timely basis, the husband, who was represented by another attorney, really just wanted to work it out with his wife and then give the attorney the deal points. She was afraid to take his call because her attorney said, don't talk to him without me. But she waited days for the attorney to call back. Her husband had no idea what was going on, and it just grew.
Fell apart.
Yes. So something that could have been resolved easily became too complicated because of response time. And that's why I say to you, do you think attorneys take on too many cases which would disable them from responding in 24 to 48 hours?
Mm-hmm. What just made me think when you were talking is it's not just the number of cases. I think because every case is different. I think it's when your attorney becomes sort of a no-show in your case, it may be because they are embroiled in a litigation, because litigation is a much higher bar in other matters, right? Much higher bar, and they could go and be sucked into trial or hearings or back-to-back depositions where they're not able to check email, they're not able to return calls. I mean, very minimally. Or they're up all night preparing. That could happen. So I think you kind of want to know, how many litigation cases do you have? How many cases that are in settlement? How many cases are you doing consulting? And caseload varies all the time because we settle cases and new people come in. So it's not static, but I think you want to know how many litigation cases does your lawyer do, because that'll give you a clue about how available they're going to be.
Thank you for saying that, because this particular episode, I really wanted to be about how to hire the right attorney. I have so many other questions for you about what you should and should not expect in a divorce filing when you have attorneys involved. But we're just getting to the end of our time. And I would love for you to come back because there's so much more to explore.
Sure.
I want to leave with one other question, though,
okay,
because this happens too often on my end of things. So one spouse goes to an attorney, that spouse becomes the petitioner, and they serve the respondent. I then inherit the respondent. It could be the other way around, but I'm just giving you what I find normally. Mm-hmm. So I inherit the respondent. The assets are not complicated. The respondent doesn't want anything. There is no spousal support. There are no children. The simplest of all cases.
Okay.
So once the disclosures are exchanged, and anybody going through divorce listening to this or about to, you have to exchange what we call disclosure statements, One is about assets and debts, so you know what there is to divide. And one is, or just what to express as separate property. And one is about income and expense. Even if there's not spousal support or child support, you still have to do it. It's a requirement, right?
Correct.
Okay, so now it's time for the settlement agreement to be written. And obviously the attorney's going to write the settlement agreement. I'm not going to do it if I'm working with a respondent. Even if I'm working with the petitioner, I would, of course, throw that over to the attorney to do. Mm-hmm. The attorney is not returning the other spouse's phone calls at all. Please address this. It's so frustrating.
The attorney's not returning their own client's phone calls?
No, the other spouse. The one that came to me.
Who's in pro per?
Yes.
Oh.
They won't return the phone call. And it becomes frustrating. And so let me just ask you pointedly. Mm-hmm. Is the attorney required to return the other spouse's phone call if it's time to negotiate the settlement?
Gosh, I feel like I have the opposite issue where I'm always chasing the pro per other person, so that's, are they obligated? Yeah, so I'm obligated to communicate with the other party or the other party's attorney if they have one. So if they have an attorney, I've got to talk to the attorney. I can't talk to the other party. If they don't have an attorney, then they're acting as their own attorney, and I treat them exactly the same way. So I serve them with everything I need to serve them with. How am I going to get the case done if I can't communicate with the other side? Yes.
Well, that's my question too. So I'll be honest. I look at it as the attorney who won't return the other spouse's call, the pro per, in representation of yourself, pro per, is because they want that other person to hire an attorney. That's where their comfort level is. And this will have to be another podcast, because the malfeasance of some attorneys in frivolous filings and jacking up the bill. Uh-huh. When you have two attorneys talking, it's very hard to manage, because you as the client cannot manage the other attorney and how they're using time and engaging your attorney. Correct?
Correct. This also made me think when you were talking, one issue that's come up for me on this pro per issue is a lot of times my client does not want to pay my time to talk to the pro per who may run up their bill, right? Because the pro per is not paying a lawyer, theoretically. So he or she can call me and email me and spend hours and hours with me, and then my client has to pay for that. So I sometimes get instructions from my client, okay, don't take his calls or her calls, or just let him put it in writing what he wants, or I'll talk to him, meaning they'll communicate, and something like that. So it's kind of legal fee control powers. That's what I sometimes find with working with pro pers. And I've seen that. I mean, certainly when you're not paying anyone and you want to, intentionally hurt the other side, yes, you can call their attorney and send them a million faxes and emails and, take them in circles, and then knowing that your other spouse is going to have to pay for that. So we're mindful of that too.
Okay, I don't know any other reason why, except could there be some attorneys that are simply not comfortable talking to the other side without an attorney being present? Can that be a real reason?
I mean, I guess if you have somebody who's like belligerent and threatening and difficult on that kind of level, or who's just... I did have a case rather recently, actually, where the other side was not represented, and I really wanted him to be, because he was unreasonable. And I just wanted him to hear what the law was, not from me, from his own lawyer. So I did, in that case, really want him to hire a lawyer.
Did you explain that to him?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay, rather than just ignore the phone calls.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I would not ever ignore the phone calls.
Okay,
no.
so what's the other spouse? What's their recourse if they don't want anything? Because this is an actual example from me. Don't want anything, just want the attorney to write up the agreement, giving everything to their spouse, and their spouse's attorney absolutely won't return emails, won't return phone calls.
What do you
do? Recourse? Yeah.
I think you have to write it up.
What does that mean to people?
I think because in your example, if I understand it correctly, you have the party that wants the other side to take on the laboring oar with drafting the judgment.
Yes.
Okay. And if they won't do that, then someone's got to draft it. So
I did.
Right.
I actually wrote the first draft.
That's what I think has to happen.
She wouldn't respond to me.
Even to the first draft.
She wouldn't respond at all. And I clearly said, I'm not an attorney. I'm a legal document assistant. I just took the initiative to write the first draft.
Right.
So that you could take this and do with it what you wanted.
Simplify your work here to get you going on it.
Didn't respond to me either.
Well, I guess a recourse in that situation is to go back to the wife. I guess if wife was represented by the lawyer, to say, hey, we're not getting any, we're stuck here.
She wouldn't return any phone calls either.
The wife either?
To the husband.
Oh.
So what is the husband's recourse? Is there a mechanism within
legally?
The system of family law, where the husband can force the attorney to the table?
Sure. You can put the case at issue and you can get a trial date.
Okay.
So then you will have a judge saying, where are we on resolving the open issues in the case? What are the open issues in the case? What discovery needs to be done? What disclosures need to be done? And then the other side is going to have to appear at court. At that point, they will start paying attention and try to theoretically, resolve it if it's a resolvable and easy case. I know people are frustrated by cases that drag on forever.
Okay, so and this is going to be the last thing. So just explain to people that if one spouse feels compelled and forced to request a trial, so there's a whole series of forms that goes into that, just to bring the divorce to a conclusion, again, wanting nothing, but wanting very little, do you find that just that, being served notice that there is a trial setting conference coming up or a request for a trial setting conference will then bring the other attorney to the table? Okay, fine.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes,
yeah.
I think
and it's not expensive. It doesn't cost you anything to request a trial.
It doesn't. You have to appear at court and be prepared for that.
There's no fees that go along with that, right?
Court fees? I don't believe so. No. So it's just the time. And do you want to appear with a lawyer or without a lawyer at this kind of a proceeding? Yeah. So, or, short of that, you can also initiate discovery. You can start taking depositions or scheduling them. People don't like to show up for things like that. So
there was nothing to schedule for. He wants nothing. There was nothing. There was a house. He doesn't want any part of it.
Right.
There are no children.
Right.
She makes more money than him. He's not asking for spousal support. It was the easiest of all cases.
But what you're looking for is a motivation tool, not necessarily a fact-finding mission because you have all the facts.
Okay. Thank you. You have to come back because I haven't even touched how to identify frivolous filings and how to manage that part.
Sure.
Will you agree to come back?
Of course, yes.
Thank you. So we have been talking with attorney Robyn Santucci, one of the loveliest and good attorneys in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Judy.
Robyn, please. I'm lucky to know you. How do people find you?
If you type in my name, which is Robyn Santucci, Santucci, Santucci Family Law, you will find my website, and it has all the information about me on it. I'm in Century City, 2049 Century Park East is my address. And my phone number is 310-975-7560.
Say it again.
310-975-7560. Call me, email me. I'm happy to help if I can. And this has been so much fun.
Thank you, and I can't wait to have you back. So again, you have been listening to Constructive Uncoupling, the podcast devoted to amicable divorces and all information you need to move forward with or without an attorney today. I am Judy Weigel, your host. You may reach me at Judy, Judy, at constructiveuncoupling.com. First time I'm giving this email address out. Judy, Judy, at constructiveuncoupling.com. Thank you so much, and we'll be back next week.